One.
And good morning, everybody, to Telford Wrekin Council's Cabinet meeting, which is being streamed online and on our council YouTube account. Obviously, we're still meeting virtually due to the ongoing pandemic. We've got quite a full agenda in front of us at the Cabinet this morning. I'm going to make a slight alteration to the running order. Item 10, which is the Environment Scrutiny Committee recommendation, I will take item 5 and then move down the items as planned on the agenda. The first item then is the apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence? I know Councillor Ray Evans may be late or absent due to a personal appointment. Anybody else?
None received in advance, Chair.
Thank you, Kieran. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest at this point or before a item is transacted?
Yes, please, Chair.
Councillor Reynolds.
Yeah, it's not a pecuniary interest, just for transparency. I just want to say that my husband is actually chair of the Friends group, which affects item 8.
Friends of the Cockshut Local Nature Reserve. Yeah. Thank you. We'll note that. I think you're right, Shirley, that there isn't any direct conflict, but for the interest of transparency, that's really helpful. Thank you.
I find interest in that as well, being a member of the Cockshut, Friends of the Cockshut group.
Thank you, Richard. I will note that again. I don't think there's any pecuniary interests around that. So it's good that we've got so many members involved in the local nature reserve, as we've got members involved in lots of local nature reserves right across the borough, which is really brilliant. Okay, in which case those are noted. The minutes of the previous meeting, those have been previously circulated. Do I have a mover for those? Moved by Richard. Thank you very much. If there's no corrections for accuracy, I'll sign those at the earliest possible opportunity after this meeting. We'll move on to leaders' updates and announcements. Just 4 items I want to just briefly touch on today. Today is Child Sexual Exploitation Awareness Day nationally, and we will be marking this as a council in the usual way with our partners. But it is really apt, this cabinet meeting, just to restate our position of zero tolerance around child sexual exploitation, and we will work tirelessly to detect CSE, working with our police to bring any perpetrators in front of the courts, and we'll look to work with and support victims and survivors of child sexual exploitation in Telford and Wrekin. We have a really strong partnership with some fantastic organisations locally, including the Holly Project, that provide support for victims and survivors of this horrific crime. And we all together today reaffirm our commitment to tackle this horrific practice that takes place right across the country. People will be aware that we've set up a council, a commission of council inquiry. That inquiry remains ongoing. Up until this point, the inquiry has received millions of pages of documents from Telford and Wrekin Council, together with other partner organisations, and we've spent over £3 million to date on that inquiry, and we're looking forward to receiving the report of the inquiry, so that any lessons learned in terms of the historic practices here in Telford and Wrekin can be addressed. I wanted to just take this moment in time to reaffirm and state our commitment to this agenda. It is also National and International Recycling Day today, and I want to say a big thank you to all of our residents right across Telford and Wrekin who are really playing their part in recycling their household waste. We are the 4th most improved council in the region for our recycling. Almost 50% of all household recycling is now household waste is now recycled, which is a really fantastic achievement from where we started. And I want to say a big thank you to our contractors and colleagues at Veolia, together with our residents, for all the work that they've been doing in regards to this. Thirdly, I'm really delighted that we are now starting to see the community action teams being mobilised right across Telford and Wrekin. We've got a fantastic partnership with 10 parish and town councils and more to come. It was brilliant to see the first community action team task being performed in Dawley yesterday, together with Conceptor and Andy Burford and the Deputy Mayor of the Town Council, Ian Priest, who've been really working hard to clean up and make clean and green our communities. And then just finally, another really big well done. Later on today, we'll be releasing our COVID stats. We've had another significant fall in our COVID rates. We have now got the lowest COVID rates in the whole of the region, which is absolutely incredible. We're well below the national and regional averages. And I want to say a big thank you to all of our residents for all the hard work that they have been doing for many, many months now to drive this virus right down. The messages are very clear. If you have the classic symptoms, get a test. If you're not able to work from home and you're out and about, get a rapid flow test. If your child is at secondary school or primary school, you're eligible for regular testing at home, as your child is also eligible for testing at school. The way in which we drive down our numbers even further is to detect where COVID cases are and support and break the transmission. And the work that our Telford Wrekin Council staff, together with our partners, have done alongside our residents has been absolutely incredible. And it's brilliant to see the results today that, as I say, we will have the lowest levels of COVID prevalence in the whole of the region. And I want to say a big, big thank you to all of our residents here in Telford and Wrekin. That's all I wanted to say under my update. We'll now move on then to the next item, which, as I say, I'm going to bring item 10 forward. So I'll pass over to Conceptor Kazar, who's representing the Environment Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Today feels like a germane day to be presenting this report, given that we're commemorating recycling efforts around the world today. So the Environment Scrutiny Committee received a presentation on street waste and recycling. The committee was keen to investigate the possibility of installing dual-use recycling bins in the borough, and members were eager to enable and increase recycling participation in the borough, allowing residents to recycle conveniently and on the go. Following passionate cross-party working on this, the committee therefore made the recommendation to the Cabinet that the Council roll out dual-use recycling bins in the Telford Town Park and 4 other major borough parks. The recommendation calls for the trial to be reviewed and followed by a rollout of dual-use bins on our high streets. I know many high streets across the borough are keen to see this progress and will support this recommendation. The committee recognises the importance of providing opportunities for residents to recycle while visiting our towns and green spaces, and has been encouraged by the progress being made within the borough by many stakeholders in regards to the climate emergency. Therefore, the Environment Scrutiny Committee makes the following recommendation to Cabinet: that the Council undertakes, as part of the climate emergency agenda, to install dual-use recycling bins within Telford Town Park and all the borough's parks. Following review and evaluation, provision of dual-use recycling bins will be considered for our high streets. Authority to be delegated to relevant officers to determine the final location, subject to work being within the existing approved budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll move to Councillor Lee Carter as Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services.
Thank you, Lee, and thank you to Councillor Kazar. Also, thank you to Chair of that Scrutiny Group, Councillor Gilly Reynolds. You've both been passionate advocates of this and the various initiatives that are coming forward from that group. I think it's an excellent example of the joint work between Scrutiny and the administration. There's been constructive challenge in there, I know, as part of the discussions, but there's also been a shared understanding of various dynamics around this and the need to be pragmatic and work within the budgetary constraints that we've got. Above all else, there's been this shared determination and commitment to meeting our shared objective of meeting our climate emergency agenda commitments. Thanks to the resources provided for in this month's budget that passed at Council earlier this month, we're able to progress with this, I think, across all the borough parks, the town park, and roll out across our high streets in a coordinated way. We're also committed to keeping one eye on best practice elsewhere, working with our partners and contractors, ID Verdi, and also the changing technologies and solutions that inevitably will come forward over the coming months and years. I think it's a really, really good recommendation, and I fully believe that we should support this as an administration.
Thank you, Lee. Carolyn, did you want to add anything? Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
Sorry, I couldn't get the mute button to turn off then. Yeah, I mean, I really support this. I think starting with our parks is really important. I think that's where most people would would obviously sit and consume picnics and so on that create lots of waste that has the potential for recycling. So it's a really good place to trial this, get it right, and then look to how we move that onto our high streets. So fully support this, and really good to work with the Environment Scrutiny Committee on actions like this.
Lovely. Is any other members of the Cabinet wish to come in before I move to the group leaders? No? OK, in which case I'll go to Councillor Dugmore.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, it's great. Great initiative. Supportive of this. Can't wait for it to be rolled out to the high streets. The main thing is making sure that the bins are emptied regularly, because that's the biggest problem that we seem to have, particularly fast food wrappers and things like that. So so fully supportive. Bring it on.
Thank you, Councillor Dugmore. Councillor Tomlinson.
Yes, I echo those thoughts. It's a fantastic, and I think the public will be really pleased with this. So well done for the scrutiny team. Thank you very much indeed.
Lovely. So in summary then, we are, as a Cabinet, we are accepting the recommendation from the committee as outlined by Councillor Carter, and the budget that we recently passed that didn't attract the support from either the Conservative group or the Liberal Democrat group will pay for this provision to be put into our parks, into our high streets. So it just goes to show that the budgets that we have in front of us do then lead to direct actions that we all want to see. Thank you very much to the Environment Committee. Thank you to Councillor Reynolds, the Chair, Councillor Kazar for her presentation, and all members of the committee. And we'll take that forward. I'll just to formally close this off, just move to an affirmative vote. If I'll take silence as agreement. Thank you, Cabinet members. Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for the item. We'll move on now to item 5. Which is the Telford and Wrekin Draft Housing Strategy 2020 to 2025 report on the outcome of the consultation process in consideration of the revised draft strategy. And this is pages 17 to 48. And I'll ask Councillor David Wright to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Last summer, you'll recall that I brought a new 5-year housing strategy to you for consideration, and I asked for your approval to consult on it with a wide audience, including partners, stakeholders and the community, and they provided feedback obviously on that strategy document. I'm reporting back in this report on the outcome of the consultation. I'm also seeking your approval for the final strategy document, which is in your pack, and that's been amended in light of the consultation. And I therefore move the report which lays before you today. The consultation told us broadly 3 important things. People were acknowledging of the importance of a good home for everyone. That's acknowledged and shared, and it's the basic principle which underpins our community, and it therefore underpins our strategy, the importance of a good home for everyone. There is broad, strong support for the Council's approach to housing and housing investment, and the strategy document was welcomed broadly right across the community and with partners. And there are 3 key objectives within the strategy, you'll recall, and they were wholeheartedly endorsed. So that's creating sustainable, accessible, affordable and integrated communities, making the best use of the borough's existing homes, and providing homes to support and empower our most vulnerable people in our communities. Now, this is a huge agenda. You can see the report is extensive and it interlinks into a whole range of other council strategies, for example, climate change. So we have comments from right across the sectors, and we are really appreciative of people taking the opportunity to engage and support us. There were some specific and detailed comments. To pick out some of the broad themes, it's recognised that new homes are required in the borough and they should be of good quality. That we must provide more affordable homes for all, and we've got to future-proof our homes to meet the needs of everyone. At the same time, developers need to have an acknowledgement that new homes place demands on local services. So new development must acknowledge our highly valued green spaces. It must acknowledge the ecology of our borough, and it must acknowledge that we need to supplement development with local service provision. The condition of the borough's existing homes and neighbourhoods came out very strongly within the consultation. These have got to be cared for and enhanced. And in the documentation, you'll see a range of proposals to do that, including action in relation to some of the new town estates, particularly in the south of Telford. And last but not least, consultees were very passionate, understandably, about climate change. And when building new homes and improving existing ones, we've got to do as much as possible to reduce carbon emissions and mitigate the effects of global warming. And housing is a key part of the borough's overall approach to this vital issue. So in terms of responding to the consultation, the report sets out the things the council is doing or is planning to do in response to those consultation themes. Just one or two examples in what is an extensive report. Obviously, we're reviewing the council's local plan, so we need to balance the supply of new homes and jobs. We'll also promote good housing design and quality, and the review will bring forward proposals to actively address climate change, including, for example, electric vehicle charging facilities, the use of renewable energy, design measures, sustainable travel, and the use of brownfield sites. And wherever possible, we'll be using, obviously, New Place, the council's housing vehicle, to act as an exemplar around these issues. We need to bring together major financial contributions from house builders and outside bodies, such as the Marches LEP, to invest in new infrastructure and services to meet local needs. These include highways, education, leisure, and health. So the picture I'm painting for you, members, is that housing doesn't sit alone. It sits alongside a range of other investment priorities that the council has. In terms of improving housing conditions and standards, we're carrying forward proposals for the direct acquisition and refurbishment of homes, including on the new town estates, and I'll be bringing further plans to Cabinet on this shortly. Our Better Homes for All programme has a focus on improving homes in the private rented sector and HMOs, and we're taking targeted action on that agenda. We're also taking targeted action to address housing quality as part of our Safer and Stronger Communities programme, and obviously that's been reported to Cabinet recently. There will be a further report on bringing empty homes back into use to the Cabinet in May, and again I'll be bringing another report forward looking at energy efficiency and affordable warmth, again to Cabinet in the coming weeks. So there is a huge agenda here, a huge amount of work that we can do on housing. I'm very proud that we've published a housing strategy. It's the first time for many years that we've done so. This will lead on to a whole series of follow-on reports, not just focused on housing, but as I've said, across the whole council agenda. So I'm very proud, I'm sure the rest of Cabinet colleagues who've been working with me on this report are, that we're integrating our housing approach into a wider council strategy. And as I've said, I move the report, Leader.
Thank you, David, and thank you for highlighting just how cross-cutting housing is to the whole of the administration. And we've altered it at various forums, but housing really is the foundation on which we build our policy platform and our support for residents here in Telford Wrekin. And I think you've really done well to articulate those linkages. Are there any Cabinet members who wish to talk on this report? Councillor Overton.
Yeah, can I formally second report as well, Leader? I just wanted to highlight, as David said, you know, the thing about homes is they are healthy homes. If you have the best home, you have better health as well, and that's key why we look at some of those issues in South Telford. And it's good that people have fed into the consultation about that. And also, as David raised, Better Homes for All, which is about work with private landlords as well, and using enforcement if necessary, and supporting those residents in private dwellings to get the repairs they need. And the issue we do have is, of course, unlicensed HMOs, which can be problematic, but they can also be a housing solution for all if they're run and managed properly. So the report, as you said, is cross-cutting, and through the enforcement agenda we are working closely, because as you know, as I said previously, housing and health go into interconnect. And it's a really positive report that we have this overarching strategy now in dealing with the housing across our borough.
Thank you very much, Deputy Leader. Councillor Watley.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Thanks also to David and the officers. I think this is a good piece of work. We're really moving forward on this agenda. It is clear that the foundations of security are good housing, and for our communities, for individuals within our communities, and this strategy goes forward on that. I'm particularly pleased that we're looking at the Newtown estates. It's been over 50 years since those houses, some of those houses were developed, and we need to look at what we're doing with those estates and how we can support the communities there. And the fact that this strategy helps us look at it from a bottom-up approach as well, with our communities, which I think is really positive. So I welcome the report.
Thank you, Councillor Shirley Reynolds.
Thank you, Leader. It's a great report. Developing homes for all, especially housing with special, the housing that's being developed with specialised housing needs across the borough. It's really important. I'm keen to see that the care leaver officer is being further improved, and also the improvement of the Newtown estates, as my colleague has just mentioned. Caring for families across the borough in the different areas is really important. I'm really keen the environmental issues from both green space and energy efficiency is actually looking after climate change, but we're ensuring that we're continuing to provide quality green spaces for families wherever they are, for our residents. All of that has been considered, so we're not only improving housing now, but we'll also be doing it in the future for residents in the borough. The improvement in the number of affordable homes is vital for families at the moment, especially in light of the difficulties that all families are currently experiencing. The report is very extensive. It's a really good look at the housing mix, which embodies the pledge to build a better borough, which is what we're all about. And I'd just like to thank the Cabinet member and all the officers for their work. It's a brilliant report.
Thank you, Councillor Andy Burford.
Yes, thank you, Leader. My thanks to all involved in producing this excellent report. It's forward-looking, it's planning for the future. In terms of some of the national focus around health inequalities, there is no more important single factor influencing health inequalities in this country than housing. The social determinants of ill health, as they call it in the trade, in terms of public health, and this is right up there in terms of those social determinants. We're getting ahead of the game here by planning ahead. We're looking at our own housing provider, New Place, developing specialist housing. We've got a supported and specialist housing strategy as part of this overall strategy. And we're looking not just at new homes, but we're looking at making sure that people can stay safe and well in their existing homes. So all those things come together in this report. I welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burford. No other Cabinet members have indicated to speak, so I'll go to the group opposition leaders. I'll start this time with Councillor Tomlinson. If you'd like to unmute yourself, Councillor Tomlinson.
Pound in the kitty. No, I fully support this strategy, Leader. It's I think it's wonderful. The particular bits I particularly like is I've always fully supported the investment in New Place, which I think has been wonderful. It provides good accommodation, rented accommodation. It gives people continuance of landlords. They know we're going to be there, and we're at a high standard. We can set a flagship. We can set the really high standard for rented accommodation in this borough. I think that's wonderful. And I'm particularly glad you've picked up on biodiversity again. So when we develop in the future on our own New Place, it will be in the greenest possible way, and it sets that standard again. I'm also really chuffed you've took on the issue of empty dwellings. It's been a blight across our borough in many areas for years, and I think we've looked at initiatives in Wolverhampton where they've had real success, their council has, in acquiring and investing in these empty dwellings, because not only is it good to provide people with a home, it's good for where people actually live, not to be blighted by some of these empty dwellings. So I think it's a fantastic strategy, and I wish to thank our council for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tomlinson. Councillor Dugmore.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of good stuff in there. I mean, Councillor Tomlinson has stolen a bit of my thunder because I was going to. I'm fully supportive of the green agenda. I would be interested to know what the plan is for retrofitting of new place properties with solar panels and making them more green. And as far as empty dwellings goes, I mean, the council's had the power to take action on this for about 10-15 years now. So finally, something's actually going to be done, and I'm fully supportive of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before I bring Councillor Wright back in, I just want to make a couple of comments. I think firstly, on New Place, we are, as a council, now the largest private sector landlord in the whole of the borough, and that puts us in a very good dominant position to be able to raise the standards of private housing here in Telford Wrekin. And actually, that was part of the vision right at the beginning of New Place. And when people attacked us for going down that particular avenue, we were attacked from lots of people that New Place was somehow a waste of money. And so I'm glad that it's now receiving broad cross-party support. And I think there's going to be some fantastic initiatives over the next few months, which will further expand the principle of New Place into the second home, the non-new build housing sector. On empty homes, I think Councillor Wright will almost confirm this, provide some more flesh on this, but we do do a huge amount around empty homes, but also I think that we do need to be honest with people that often the situation around long-term empty homes is significantly complex. So, for example, you have homes that were in probate for quite some time, you have family disputes over properties, and it's not as easy as waving a wand. But what we will be doing and what we are doing is we're charging 200% council tax on some of these properties. And there's a very clear message to people: if you've got a long-term empty home in Telford Wrekin, come and talk to us, because we will be turning the screw enforcement on you. But we also want to talk to you about ways in which we can help you solve the problem and bring homes back into use. But this is a fantastic report, has been said. Well done to everyone concerned. David, I'll give you the last word.
Thank you, Leader. I appreciate the work that colleagues right across the Cabinet have put into this. It's not just about the housing team. As I've said, it's about integrating this approach into the wider the wider council strategy, and that's absolutely central to this. I'll be bringing further reports to the to Cabinet, as I've said, on affordable warmth and on our property development strategy through New Place and partner vehicles. I'll also be bringing a specific report on empty homes. There are about 1,700 empty homes currently in Telford and Wrekin. We have a specific officer now that her sole job as a team member is to focus on empty homes and bringing them back into use. And we're seeing some significant successes on that. And we're using the council tax escalator to provide both a stick alongside the carrot to bring some of those homes back into use. And that's absolutely central to our approach on empty homes. So there'll be further report on that to Cabinet. I'm pleased to hear members' comments. I'm absolutely committed to making sure we build more affordable homes. Just as an aside, Leader, I can report to you, having done some investigative work on this, that we're building double the amount of affordable homes than the Conservatives did when they ran the administration at Telford and Wrekin. So very often Conservative members come to council and talk to us about affordable housing numbers. Well, we're building twice as many as you did when you ran the administration. So thank you, Leader, for considering the report this morning.
Excellent. It's been moved, it's been seconded. Again, I'll take silence as agreement on that report. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, we'll move on now to item number 6, which is the Telford and Wrekin Council Housing Allocations Policy, 21 to 26, page 49 to 84. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Leader. I'll move this report formally. This report is quite technical in some senses, but it goes to the very heart of what we do as a local authority and the people that we support within our communities. Obviously, we're not a major social landlord anymore, but social housing is crucially important in terms of meeting housing needs in the borough. Now, under the Housing Act, we have to have our own up-to-date housing allocations policy, and that's for two main reasons. So firstly, while housing associations must have their own policies, obviously, for who they house, they have to take into account the housing needs in our borough and the priorities of us as and our priorities as a council. And secondly, also in practical terms, when we put forward or nominate someone, a household in need to a housing association, it is in law us making a housing allocation. Now, I know that sounds a bit strange, but a nomination effectively in law is an allocation in terms of our approach. So we have to have a clear policy in relation to that. So the housing allocation policy has a number of elements. It's got an overview of our the borough context. It talks about how you find affordable homes in the borough, and it talks about our housing priorities. And obviously, those must include our statutory priorities. So, for example, how we assist and support people who are homeless or faced with homelessness, and how we try and support other groups that we identify as priorities, as Councillor Reynolds has already mentioned, care leavers. So we use this approach when we make nominations to a housing association. We're about to launch a pilot new scheme with our main housing providers on how we work together on nominations. I'm really pleased about that. We've seen a growth in the number of households over the last 12 months who are presenting as homeless, who are at risk of homelessness, and they'll be the main focus of our nominations. And obviously we've done a huge amount of work through the Everyone In programme, and I'm really proud of the work that the team has done to remove rough sleepers off the street and give them support and give them opportunities to move into housing. So basically this report is about ensuring that we have an updated housing allocations policy. It's about making sure that people who approach us can find an affordable home they need in what is quite a difficult environment. And what we're going to do now with your approval is consult on the new allocation policy with our local housing providers, other stakeholders. It'll be an 8-week consultation period, and that will take account obviously of Easter and other holidays. And I'm confident the policy will be supported, but obviously if there's any major changes, then I'll bring the policy back to Cabinet. But I'm asking for your formal approval today in moving the report.
Thank you, Councillor David Wright. Councillor Watland to second. And did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just second the report.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, are there any Cabinet members wish to talk on this technical pre-consultation paper? No, in which case I'll move to the group leaders, this time start with Nigel.
Yeah, just a quick question, really. How much clout do we actually have with the providers? Because it's all well and good having a strategy, but if they don't take any notice of it, or presumably they've got people applying to them directly anyway. So basically, how much clout do we have?
Thank you, Nigel. I'll come to Bill, and I'll ask David to pick up that point. But Bill.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I welcome this document going out to consultation. The clarity I would like is that we live in a very much an online world. You can't do anything these days now without having to apply for something online. And we all are aware with the vulnerable people that we look after across the borough, but not everyone's got access to a computer, and everyone can understand a computer. I just want reassurance for all our residents that those people that need help and need a friendly person on the end of a phone call we can say, look, we can take you through these steps and we can help you with this. Can we actually guarantee that we can do that for everyone? Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, David. Do you want to pick those 2 points up?
Yeah, they're positive comments, really. In terms of Councillor Dugmore's question, we do have significant clout with local providers because they're asking us for nominations, and that's why we need a formal policy in terms of who we're going to nominate. The number of people that we're nominating through, I can provide some further information to Councillor Dugmore in relation to the number of nominations that we make, but this is about prioritising people through that process. There is going to be a change in the way that housing waiting list runs within the town. I've obviously briefed members right across the council already. So people will have to approach individual housing associations, social housing providers separately. And we are providing the housing hotline to ensure that they can make the connection into a particular provider. The biggest provider, obviously, we have locally is Wrekin Housing Group. And so we have a particularly strong nomination arrangement with them, but we have a very strong nomination arrangement with other housing providers that we have within the borough as well. And this is about partnership working with those organisations, and that's why we're consulting on the policy to make sure that it works as smoothly as possible. In terms of Councillor Tomlinson's query, Bill, that's really what the focus of the housing hotline is, and making sure that people have got a clear contact point, not just online, but through the housing hotline. A lot of the people that will come forward for a nomination will come through that process. So yes, you can approach us both on the phone, you can approach us online, and you can write us a letter if you like. We'll pick all approaches up.
Excellent. Okay, that's been moved and seconded. I'll take silence as agreement once again. Lovely. Okay, thank you, and thanks, David, for those two significant reports and your the information you provided to us today. It's really good to see this agenda moving forward at the pace that it is, at the quick pace that it is, I should say. Just to clarify my word pace there, Carolyn. Item number 7 then is the definitive map modification order, policy and procedures, pages 85 to 104. Councillor Healy.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, we don't want to be moving at snail's pace, do we? So this report is part of a major piece of work around how our public rights of way are managed. As part of this work, we've sealed and digitised the definitive map and are consulting at the moment on the categorisation of the public rights of way across the borough. This comes after an additional £100,000 investment in the rights of way network during the last 2 years, which was a key commitment of this administration. The report deals specifically with changes to the definitive map modification order process. So the definitive map and statement are the legal documents that record rights of way, and the council has a duty to keep them under continuous review, which means that when evidence becomes available that there is an error, inaccuracy or omission, then this should be modified as soon as is reasonably practical by the legal order, which is known as the definitive map modification order. In order to make a modification order application, there has to be sufficient evidence to prove the right of way exists, and this can be evidence of use over a long period or historical maps and records. Previously, council officers have investigated all claims and carried out the research into that relevant evidence. This has been extremely time consuming, taking longer than 12 months, considerably longer than 12 months for each application, and causing a significant backlog of over 120 modification orders. We actually expect that backlog to grow due to an anticipated increase in modification order applications ahead of the 2026 cut-off date for designating rights of way based purely on historical evidence. So we need to think again about how we deal with these orders. So the main change in approach is that those applying for a modification order will need to provide and collate evidence, and in the case of a contested claim, provide this to the planning inspector, with the council taking a neutral stance and facilitating that process. We have consulted on this revised approach, and whilst there are some concerns that have been raised through as part of that consultation process, the policy is sufficiently flexible to be able to address those concerns. For example, the policy doesn't prevent the council from seeking its own modification orders where we become aware of an issue, and it doesn't prevent us taking an active role in a public inquiry. Our neutral stance is our default position, but we can move away from that, and that's allowed for in the policy. But the policy does provide for that speedy determination of modification orders, and also a more transparent process, as we'll be publishing applications online so that they can be viewed and the progress followed, just like you can with a planning application, so that the whole thing is completely transparent. I move the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Healy. Is there a seconder for that report? That's that recommendations. Thank you, Councillor Watlin. Okay, are there any comments or questions from Cabinet members? I think it was a very full report and a very full explanation of the report. There's nobody indicating to speak on this, so I assume we are able to move to the vote, which we'll do now. Again, I'll take silence as agreement. Lovely. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Carolyn, to you and to the officers for bringing that forward. We're looking forward to seeing how that works going forward. Okay, item 8 then is the declaration of the Cockshut Local Nature Reserves, pages 105 to 116. Councillor Healy, over to you again.
Thank you. So with this report, I'm asking Cabinet to approve a declaration of the final local nature reserve that was identified as part of the 2011 local plan. The Cockshut will be the 17th local nature reserve, taking the area of local nature reserves per head of population to triple that of the national standard, adding to the wide range of protected green space that's easily accessible to the vast majority of our residents. As well as providing a valuable recreational resource for residents of St George's, Oaken Gates, Rockwood Wood and further afield, the site provides habitats for a host of wildlife and is also a valuable carbon sink, as is set out in quite a lot of detail in the report. So, subject to approval today, the declaration will then be referred to Natural England to be formally welcomed as a local nature reserve. It's important to say that whilst this is the final local nature reserve declaration of the 2011 local plan, it will not be the last local nature reserve created by this administration, as we're committed to protecting more of our wonderful natural habitats around the borough. Finally, I'd just like to pay tribute to the parish councils surrounding the Cockshut and especially the Friends group, chaired by Councillor Stephen Reynolds, who've worked so hard to bring this declaration forward and continue to help manage the site for the benefit of people and people and wildlife. I move the recommendations.
Excellent. Again, brilliant reports. Councillor Reynolds, are you seconding and which would make a contribution?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Yeah, more than happy to second this. I'm delighted this wonderful green space in the borough is being protected and designated as a local nature reserve. The importance of our green spaces has never been more relevant than it has been during the last 12 months. Many families in my ward regularly use the Cockshut for exercise, but more importantly, as a safe haven, a retreat, and somewhere that it continues to be of paramount importance to many families for their actual well-being. The Cockshut piece, as it's known locally, has long been a treasure. It's the jewel in the north of Telford, and it's now being one of 17 local nature reserves protected by this administration for generations to come. That's together with the 200 green guarantee sites we already have. I think that shows loud and clear we're continuing to protect, care and invest in our borough's natural environment. And actually, I will say this on behalf of my husband because he's not here, but he will be delighted. As chairman of the Friends of the Cockshut Group, he has worked quite a long time, and the administration have been incredibly supportive to ensure we're able to designate this as a local nature reserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Overton.
Yeah, thank you, Leader, and thanks, Callan, for the report and Shirley's comments. I echo them. I mean, as a member of the Friends group, Steve has done an amazing job in pulling the group together to start with, and the work he does there as well as regular litter picks. But as a ward member for St George, it's really great to see the Cockshut as a local nature reserve. People have been crying out for it to be local nature, but we've always known it's going to be protected because the value that it adds to our communities, both in St George's, Rockwood Wood, Trench and Oaken Gates and Ketley, and all the people who come from further afield to see it. And as Councillor Reynolds said, building on our green guarantee sites, the 17th local nature reserve, and we know we want more to come because we do value the green spaces in our borough. It is a selling point of Telford and Wrekin, and we will continue to do all we can to protect those spaces. And I'd like to thank Carolyn for bringing this report because it's not far from my doorstep, so it's something I enjoy.
Thank you very much, Eileen.
Thank you, Leader. Shirley Reynolds has said a lot of the things that I was going to say, so I don't want to repeat, but I do fully support this report, and thanks to Councillor Healy for bringing this forward. I think, these areas, they are already much loved, and the last 12 months during the pandemic and lockdowns, they've been a real lifesaver for residents. So I think they've just come to the forefront really for people's health and well-being. So I think it's really important. I fully support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor David Wright.
Yeah, this is a great report. Can I thank Councillor Healy for bringing it forward? And as a local ward member, I'd reflect Councillor Overton's comments really. This is an absolute huge asset in North Telford. It's a site that I've known throughout my life, and it's a fantastic area of open space, and it's a real a real treasure in the community. And during lockdown, it's been a lifeline for many people, including myself, to go for a walk and get some exercise. But beyond that, it's a massive asset for the future as well. And I'm absolutely delighted with this report. So thank you, Councillor Healy.
Thank you. And we'll go to Councillor Bill Tomlinson this time first.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'm really chuffed for the people that use the Cockshut Local Nature Reserve. I've got one locally by myself in the Dothill one and at Apley. And I think it's not only good for the people that go and enjoy the green open space and the fact we're protecting it, which is fantastic. It also means that those people that join the Friends group, it helps their mental health. It means they engage with the community in a really positive way. And for the council, it gives them, you know, bundles of cheap labour. And I'm only joking, but it really does, and it works amazingly. So I fully support this council's approach to designating these local nature reserves. I know you said you got to 17. I can't wait when we get up to about 32. So when we're looking at the local plan, I'm only joking, but you know, as many as we can, because they are wonderful, and it gives them that legal protection as well, you know, ongoing, and it's great. It's great for our green Telford. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And finally, Nigel.
Yeah. Just to endorse what's already been said and what Bill said. I mean, as Telford expands, it's really important that these green spaces are preserved, and you know, as many as is feasibly possible. Great.
Thank you. I mean, I just want to highlight a few stats on this agenda. We've got more green flag parks than we've ever had before. We've delivered 17 local nature reserves 10 years ahead of when we said we would, and with more local nature reserves on its way. We've got more designated country parks in this borough than ever before. We've got hundreds of sites under the Green Guarantee protected from development and forever under this administration, and all this is not by accident. This is by complete policy intent to safeguard the USP that we have here in Telford Wrekin, which is our green urban blend that all of our residents really do enjoy. And the reality is that if you live in Telford Wrekin, you're not far away from some fantastic high quality green space, and that isn't often true for other parts of the country. And I think the Carolyn stat around we have 3 times more local nature reserves per head of population is absolutely incredible, and we want to go further than that too. So I think my message to residents of Telford Wrekin is we've got some fantastic green green sites, green assets. Let's go out and explore them. And as we go forward, we're going to be bringing forward some fantastic plans to be able to celebrate our green spaces much more than we are at the moment, and also some resources so residents can access their green spaces and understand the green spaces. I went to the Cockshut recently for the first time in my life. Actually, I didn't know too much about the Cockshut until I went up there with my family, and it's incredible that these fantastic resources exist and people don't know about them. So we've got a huge amount of work on our hands to try and highlight to our residents in Telford Wrekin just what we do have here in Telford Wrekin. And you know, we have got some fantastic resources and we need to celebrate them. Carolyn, I'll give you the last word on this report before we move to the vote.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, obviously you're spot on in relation to us having that fantastic resource across our borough, and you know, we have got a huge amount of green space. I know we've talked about housing today as well, and as Councillor Wright said in his report, the housing strategy, this is about building in a sustainable way. So we are a growing town, but we do that in a way that ensures people still have accessible green space on their doorstep, and this is all part and parcel of that. Just wanted to pick up on Councillor Tomlinson's point around friends groups. We've got a wonderful network of friends groups across our parks, local nature reserves, and other green spaces, and they really do you know, support the management of these sites, and you know, it's a wonderful way for people to get engaged and involved in their local area. So you know, a big part of our role is actually supporting those friends groups as well. So as you say, lots more to come going forward. We've got some exciting plans in relation to our green spaces, which we'll no doubt bring to this meeting at a future date. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. That's brilliant. It's been moved. It's been seconded. I'll take silence as agreement, and we'll move on then to our final report this morning, which is the Telford Wrekin Council becoming a carbon neutral, the action plan annual review, pages 117 to 196. Councillor Healy.
Right. Well, more positive news. I hope you'll agree. So the Climate Change Update Report and Action Plan sets out the progress made since we declared a climate emergency in July 2019. And this builds on our successful track record of tackling climate change over the last 10 years. The 2021 Action Plan, this is the new Action Plan, sets out key actions required to get to carbon neutral by 2030 across the Council. The Action Plan is a result of a collaborative effort and feedback from many individuals and organisations, including our residents, employees, the Environment Scrutiny Committee, elected members, town and parish councils, and our partners on the Telford and Wrekin Borough Climate Change Partnership. So far, we've made excellent progress in reducing emissions from the Council's operations, with a 36% decrease in 2019-20 compared to the previous baseline year. We're monitoring our carbon emissions on financial year, so this significant reduction doesn't reflect the bulk of the COVID lockdowns and restrictions which started in late March. So this is just on the actions we've taken as part of our commitment to addressing climate change. We've reduced our emissions by over a third. The fall in emissions has been achieved by a range of measures, such as successfully moving towards low carbon buildings and energy, as well as more sustainable modes of transport. We've also been successful in securing 1.37 million in grant funding to fit heat pumps and improved insulation in our council leisure centres. The action plan recognises and builds on the needs to enhance the borough's green spaces to enable climate adaptation and resilience. We've provided more than 8,600 free trees to residents, organisations and schools through the Trees for TW scheme. And we'll be creating a community forest with a tree planted for every child starting reception on an annual basis. However, our focus is very much on reducing consumption and associated carbon emissions as the first priority, with renewables and recycling as the secondary action, and then offsetting, so things like tree planting, as the final option when no further reductions can be made. Whilst this report deals with the Council Climate Change Action Plan, we recognise that we are just one organisation contributing to the carbon footprint of the borough. So in order to foster and support borough-wide climate action, the Telford and Wrekin Borough Climate Change Partnership will be launching its consultation on a borough-wide action plan later this year. To further aid climate action across the whole borough, the council has launched a £100,000 fund to help organisations in our borough reduce their carbon footprint, and there is still time to apply for this fund, so please members promote this in your areas. Importantly, COVID-19 hasn't undermined our progress on climate change. In fact, it's strengthened our efforts through embedding changes in the way we work, travel and live, and those will kind of feed through into the next time that we report, because that's when the bulk of those changes have come through. So rather than exist as an afterthought, sustainability and resilience to climate change is at the heart of our priorities across the council and our post-COVID recovery plan. I think that was demonstrated in the report earlier around housing, where we're embedding climate change as part of that strategy. The recent resident survey shows that the majority of our residents share our concerns about climate change. Yet the council and our community cannot act alone on this global issue. We also need far more legislative and funding support from government, and that's set out in our 10 asks of government contained in the plan. I'd like to thank all our officers from across the council for putting climate change at the heart of everything we do, and I move the recommendations.
Thank you, Caroline. Is that seconded? Thanks, Eileen. Lovely. Any comments or questions from cabinet members? No. Okay. In which case, I'll move to Councillor Tomlinson.
I really do welcome this report, and thank you for such a comprehensive one that Councillor Healy's brought forward to us today. We have some great successes in the borough. I'm thinking of the solar farm, where we're helping with the environment and cutting down on using natural resources to create energy, and also with I think the LED lighting that we put around the borough. We were one of the first to make sure we had all LED lighting. which means it lasts forever and it's an awful lot cheaper because it's not electricity. So I'm really chuffed with that. I am passionate, I have to say, about trees, Kathleen Swahili. And even my mum and dad, you know, secretly used to grow them in the garden and take them up to the local park without them noticing and plant them wherever they could. So I'm not suggesting I'll go and do that, but I'm also consciously aware that we have a bit of a crisis at the moment with trees, with the poor old ash dieback, and I know the arboreal officer is really upset. He loves trees and he's having to chop them down because they're structurally unsound. On the local nature reserve by myself, you know, that people have come forward and there's now 600 oak trees going to be coming to plant them. My point is, you're doing fantastic work with partnerships in planting these trees out. Maybe if you know, we can talk more with the friends that they will not only plant them for free. You might find groups and associations and even residents who'd be happy to contribute towards a tree fund for their local area if they can see, pardon the expression, the fruits of it where they are. So if we can see more local tree planting, as well as us doing our big job as well, that would be great, because, you know, everyone should go out and hug a tree. So I think it's wonderful. So please, yeah, let's encourage more tree planting. Thank you.
Thank you. Nigel?
Yeah, fully support all this agenda. I mean, just mentioning about trees, can we just be a bit mindful about planting fruit trees and things like that near public footpaths, because they can be a bit of a health and safety thing if the fruit drops and then starts rotting on the pavements. They'd be quite interested to know the location of the of where the forest is going to be planted, because so you know, so perhaps you could give some idea on that. And also just a quick question on how many electric car parking charging points are being planned for the borough, because I noticed that that's on the agenda as well. But yeah, generally speaking, got no problem with this at all. Yeah, bring it on.
Thank you. Just before I bring Carolyn in to address those two points and then to have the final word on this report, I just want to just make a couple of points myself. Firstly, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it really does matter when we have both opposition parties at the budget meeting failing to support the budget of the administration, which puts £4 million into the climate change agenda, then to seek to welcome and to own the report that's in front of us today. You can't have it both ways. If you know, please do support the budget that pays for all these things that you are now seeking to support. And I was very sad that both groups didn't support the budget with a £4 million climate change package involved. Ditto on the solar farm. We were again, people almost now claim that as a universally popular initiative. It wasn't. It was voted against at the time by the Conservative opposition. In fact, at their last alternative budget, they pledged to sell it to the private sector. LED street lighting, opposed by the Conservatives at the time, said it was a waste of money, and now are seeking to welcome it. And I do think we do need a bit of grown-up politics. But to end on a positive, my son starts primary school in September, and I'm absolutely delighted that there's going to be a tree planted for him. And I think that the way in which that you know, over the next 10, 15, 20, 25 years and far beyond then, the connection of this initiative to the future generations of Telford Wrekin residents is going to be really profound and strong. So I'm really looking forward to that coming forward. Carolyn, if you could pick up Nigel and Bill's points and then conclude, please.
Yeah, sure. So in relation to trees and particularly ash dieback, obviously that is a significant issue for us. I'll be bringing a tree and woodland strategy to a future cabinet meeting, which will outline our approach to that. And of course, we will need to look at how we replace some of those significant ash stocks. And Dot Hill Local Nature Reserve is a really good example of that, where we're actually planting oak trees in readiness for those ash trees to move, so switching the canopy from ash to oak. With in terms of I mean, the point around fruit trees, of course, when any tree planting, it's about the right tree in the right place and selecting the right species for the right location. Clearly, we've got a legacy of some trees that do cause some issues, and again, that's all wrapped up in the tree and woodland strategy that I'll be bringing forward. The forest, the community forest idea in terms of children of reception aid. It's likely that this will be across a number of sites, so rather than one key location. So again, we're bringing back more details on that. We want to spread our woodland canopy across the whole of the borough, because clearly there's some parts of the borough that are considerably more wooded than others, and we want to try to address that. In relation to electric vehicle charging points, again, I know that Councillor Wright is also working with me on a lot of this, so there'll be further reports to Cabinet in terms of that approach. But there are a couple of points. Obviously, there's the council specific approach in terms of our own offices and making sure we've got charging points available for our fleet vehicles and for staff who we encourage to switch to electric with their own vehicles. But then also looking at how we can ensure that it's easier for people in their domestic properties to have electric cars. The two ways of doing that. One is obviously we're looking to partner up and create an electric vehicle charging forecourt in the borough. That will obviously require some private sector involvement. With new builds, looking at how we can future-proof and make sure that we've got that provision built in to both new commercial and domestic properties, and that will be a key part of the local plan coming forward. And then looking at our existing housing estates where there perhaps people don't have private driveways, and how we can facilitate electric vehicle charging in those areas. So it's an evolving approach, because clearly where people are still making that switch to electric vehicles, and we need to move, as that demand moves on. The danger is that if we went sort of all out with a particular type of vehicle charging point, the technology can change. There are a number of different sort of pod point type setups. So we need to make sure we've got the infrastructure so that people can connect to it, rather than be too prescriptive. So that's our approach, but we will be back bringing further details on that back to Cabinet. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, that's been proposed and seconded. I'll take silence as agreement. That report's passed. Thank you so much for everyone's contributions this morning. A really exciting agenda in front of us all today. It's good to see cross-party support, but let's just make sure we all vote for the money when it comes through, rather than trying to make political point scoring at budget time. And I look forward to seeing a more grown-up politics approach in the coming months and years. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day, and stay safe and be kind. Thank you.